I found my best friend's journal open on her coffee table while she was in the shower, page after page filled with "I hate her so much and it should have been me living her perfect life." When she came back and saw me reading it, she snatched it away and screamed, "7 years I've had to watch you live my life with him. You don't deserve any of it." I just stood there, my wedding ring suddenly feeling heavy on my finger. That was 3 months ago. Yesterday, she showed up at our door, visibly pregnant, tears streaming down her face as she grabbed my husband's hand and placed it on her belly, whispering, "Tell her the truth. Tell her it's yours and that we've been together all along." My husband's face went white as paper while I felt the world collapse around me. But what she didn't know was that I planted a hidden microphone in her apartment the day I found that journal. I'm sitting in my car outside the police station with a flash drive in my hand. The recordings are all there. 3 months of my best friend's voice, my husband's confused mumbling, and someone else I never expected to hear again. But let me back up. The journal thing happened on a Tuesday. I'd stopped by Mia's place with coffee like we'd done every week for 7 years. She was in the shower, music blasting from her phone on the counter. "Just leave it on the table," she yelled over the water. That's when I saw it. Purple leather journal, cracked open to a page covered in her handwriting. My name was everywhere. Sarah gets everything handed to her. The perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect husband. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in this shoebox apartment working retail because Daddy didn't pay for my college. My hands were shaking as I flipped back a page. Watched them at dinner last night. The way Mark looks at her like she hung the moon. He should be looking at me like that. I was there first. I introduced them. It should have been me. More pages. Months of entries. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like if she just disappeared. Would Mark finally see me? Would he remember that night before their wedding when we almost... The shower stopped. I kept reading, my coffee getting cold on her chipped IKEA table. I hate her so much sometimes I can't breathe. 7 years of pretending to be happy for her perfect life while mine falls apart. 7 years of watching him choose her over me every single day. "What are you doing?" Mia stood in the doorway, towel wrapped around her, water dripping from her dark hair onto the hardwood. The journal was open. I saw my name. She lunged forward and snatched it away, clutching it against her chest. "You had no right." "Mia, what is this? What are you talking about? Mark was yours first. You introduced us at your birthday party." Her face twisted into something I'd never seen before. Pure rage. 7 years I've had to watch you live my life with him. You don't deserve any of it. She was screaming now, mascara from yesterday running down her cheeks. You waltz around in your designer clothes and your perfect marriage while I'm here alone, working dead-end jobs, watching everyone else get what should have been mine. "Mia, you're my best friend?" "Friend?" She laughed, high and sharp. "Friends don't steal the love of your life and then parade it in front of you for 7 years. I backed toward the door. This wasn't the Mia who'd been my maid of honor. Who'd held my hair back during food poisoning. Who'd helped me pick out my wedding dress. "I think I should go." "Yes, you should. Go back to your perfect life, Sarah. Enjoy it while you can." I drove home with my hands still shaking. Mark was in the garage, working on his motorcycle. How was coffee with Mia? I stood there looking at him. Really looking. His sandy hair falling in his eyes, grease stains on his old college t-shirt. The way he smiled when he saw me, like I was the best part of his day. "Fine," I said. "Everything's fine." That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Mark's arm around me felt different. Heavier. Like I was holding on to something that was never really mine. The next morning I called in sick to work. Instead, I drove to Best Buy and bought a small recording device. The kind private investigators use in movies. The teenage sales clerk showed me how it worked. "Motion activated," he said, demonstrating with his hands. "Battery lasts about a week. Just stick it somewhere and it'll pick up everything within 10 feet. What if someone finds it?" He shrugged. "Hide it better." That afternoon I texted Mia. "I'm sorry about yesterday. Can we talk? I'll bring lunch. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Please. You're my best friend. I don't want to lose you over this." 20 minutes later, "Fine. But I'm not ready to pretend everything's normal." I showed up with Thai food and the recording device in my purse. While she was getting plates from the kitchen, I stuck it under her coffee table, behind one of the legs. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told her as we sat down to eat. She picked at her pad thai. Have you? About Mark. About how you feel. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. What about it? I need to know the truth. What happened before the wedding? For a second, her mask slipped. I saw something calculating flash across her face. Nothing happened, Sarah. I was just upset. You know how I get when I'm emotional. But her voice was different. Careful. Like she was reading from a script. We ate in silence after that. I helped her clean up, hugged her goodbye, and left the device under her table. A week later I went back to retrieve it. This time I brought flowers and an apology. I overreacted, I told her. Reading your journal was wrong. I should have closed it the second I saw it was personal. She seemed more relaxed. More like the old Mia. I'm sorry too. For what I said. I was just having a bad day. While she arranged the flowers in a vase, I pawned the device from under the table. That night, I plugged it into my laptop and put in headphones. Mark was watching TV in the living room. The first few hours were boring. Mia moving around her apartment, talking to her cat, playing music. Then I heard her on the phone. No, it went fine. She apologized and everything. I don't think she suspects anything. A man's voice responded, but it was too muted to make out. The timeline's perfect. Another month or two and then we make our move. More mumbling from the other person. Trust me, I know Mark better than she does. I know exactly what will work. My blood went cold. Once she's out of the picture, everything falls into place. Mark and I can finally be together, and you get what you want. I replayed that section 10 times, trying to make out the other voice. It sounded older. Familiar somehow, but I couldn't place it. I started checking in on Mia more often. Casual visits with coffee or lunch, always with a new recording device. She seemed pleased that I was making an effort to repair our friendship. I'm glad we're past all that drama, she said during one visit, touching my arm. You know you mean the world to me, right? I smiled and nodded while the device under her couch captured every word. The recordings revealed a pattern. Phone calls every few days, always with the same mysterious man. They talked about the plan and perfect timing and how I would never see it coming. But they also revealed something else. Mark's name came up constantly, but not the way I expected. Mia talked about him like he was confused. Disoriented. He's been so foggy lately. Keeps forgetting conversations we've had. Yesterday he asked me the same question 3 times. That's good, the man said. Means it's working. Keep increasing the dose. Are you sure it's safe? He seems really out of it sometimes. It's temporary. Once this is over, he'll be back to normal. Well, mostly normal. I sat in my car outside a Target parking lot, listening to this conversation on repeat. They were drugging my husband. That explained so much. Mark had been different lately. Tired all the time. Forgetting things. I thought it was stress from work. But how were they getting drugs into him? And what drugs? The answer came 2 weeks later. I was having lunch with Mia at our usual spot when she excused herself to use the bathroom. Her purse was sitting open on the table. Inside, I could see a small brown bottle with no label. When she came back, I was stirring my soup like nothing had happened. You know what's funny? She said, settling back into her seat. Mark's been stopping by my coffee shop more often lately. Almost every morning before work. My spoon stopped moving. Really? Yeah. Says he likes supporting local businesses. Sweet of him, right? She worked at a little cafe downtown. The same route Mark took to his office. That is sweet, I managed. That afternoon I followed Mark's morning routine. Watched from across the street as he went into Mia's cafe. She was behind the counter, all smiles and friendly conversation. She handed him his usual order, large coffee, black, no sugar. The same coffee he'd been drinking for 10 years. Except now I knew what else was in it. I bought a home drug testing kit online. The kind worried parents use on their teenagers. That night, while Mark was brushing his teeth, I collected a sample from the coffee mug he'd left on his nightstand. The same mug he'd been using every morning for weeks. The test came back positive for benzodiazepine. A lot of it. I sat on our bathroom floor, staring at the results. My best friend was drugging my husband with anxiety medication. Enough to make him confused and compliant. But why? What was the endgame? I got my answer 3 days later. Mark came home from work looking pale and shaky. I think I need to see a doctor, he said, slumping into a kitchen chair. I can't remember half of today. And yesterday's pretty fuzzy too. I made him tea and rubbed his shoulders while inside I was screaming. Maybe it's just stress. You've been working so hard lately. Maybe. He leaned into my touch. Sarah, have I been acting weird lately? Different? A little tired, maybe. Nothing major. He was quiet for a long time. Then Mia called me at work today. Said we'd made plans for coffee tomorrow morning. But I don't remember making any plans. My hand stilled on his shoulders. She probably just wants to catch up. You know how she is. That's just it. I don't remember the last few times we got coffee either. But apparently we've been meeting regularly? She knew things about conversations we'd supposedly had, but I couldn't remember any of it. I kept rubbing his shoulders and made soothing noises while my mind raced. I'm worried I'm losing my memory or something. What if it's early onset dementia? My grandfather had it. Hey. I turned his chair around so he was facing me. You're 32. It's not dementia. You're probably just overworked and stressed. But I could see the fear in his eyes. The confusion. That night, he held me extra tight. Promise me, he whispered into my hair. If something's wrong with me, if I start forgetting important things, promise you'll be patient with me. I promised, even though I knew the truth. Someone was stealing his memories on purpose. The next morning I followed Mark to Mia's cafe again. This time I went inside. The morning rush was in full swing. I ordered a latte and positioned myself where I could watch the counter. Mark came in right on schedule. Mia's face lit up when she saw him. The usual? She asked, already reaching for a cup. Actually, I think I'll try something different today. Her hand froze. Different? Maybe a cappuccino. Or that lavender thing you mentioned. Oh, but you love your regular coffee. You always say it's the only thing that gets you going in the morning. Her voice was strained, but she was still smiling. I know, but I thought I'd switch it up. She poured his regular coffee anyway, sliding it across the counter. On the house today. Try something new tomorrow if you want, but this is your favorite. Mark looked confused but took the coffee. Thanks, Mia. That's really nice of you. As he left, I saw her shoulders sag with relief. I followed him to his car and watched him take a long sip before pulling out of the parking lot. That was the last time he went to her cafe. I'd been avoiding the question of who Mia was working with, but the voice on the recordings was getting clearer. More familiar. It hit me during a particularly clear conversation about making Sarah pay for what her mother did. I knew that voice. I'd spent my childhood trying to forget it, but some sounds get buried in your bones. My father. The man who walked out when I was 8, leaving my mom with nothing but debt and broken promises. Who I hadn't seen or heard from in over 15 years. Suddenly I understood. This wasn't just about Mark. This was revenge. I drove to my mother's house that night. She was in her garden, pruning roses in the twilight. Mom, I need to ask you something. She looked up, dirt smudged on her cheek. What's wrong? You look upset. Have you heard from Dad recently? Her face went still. Your father? Sarah, you know I haven't spoken to him since the divorce. Are you sure? No letters, no phone calls, nothing? She set down her pruning shears. Why are you asking this? I sat down on her porch steps. I think he might be back. I think he might be trying to hurt me somehow. Hurt you? Honey, your father was a lot of things, but he was never violent. Not physically. But what if he wanted revenge? For the divorce, for you getting the house, for him having to pay child support? Mom sat down next to me. The child support stopped when you turned 18. That was 14 years ago. But maybe he's still angry. Maybe he blames our family for ruining his life. She was quiet for a long time. Then, there was something. About 6 months ago. My stomach dropped. What kind of something? I got a friend request on Facebook. From a profile with no picture, but the name was familiar. Robert Hernandez. My father's middle name was Robert. His mother's maiden name was Hernandez. Did you accept it? No, but I looked at the profile. It was mostly empty, but there were a few posts about getting back what was stolen and making things right. I thought it was just some random person, but now. She trailed off, staring at her roses. Mom, did you ever post about me on Facebook? About my wedding, my job, anything? Of course, honey. I'm proud of you. Why? So he'd been watching. Learning about my life through my mother's social media posts. But how had he connected with Mia? I got my answer the next day when I went back to retrieve another recording device from Mia's apartment. She wasn't home, but I could hear voices through the door. I pressed my ear against it. Been 15 years since I've seen her, a man was saying. She looks just like her mother did at that age. She doesn't deserve any of it, Mia replied. The perfect husband, the perfect life. While people like us get nothing. Her mother thought she was so much better than me. Took everything in the divorce, turned my own daughter against me. Now it's time for payback. And you're sure Mark will choose me once Sarah's out of the picture? Men always choose the woman who needs them. Sarah's too independent, too confident. You're vulnerable, desperate. He'll want to save you. I backed away from the door, my heart pounding. That night, I called a lawyer. You need to go to the police, Janet Kessler said, reviewing the recordings I'd brought her. This is conspiracy, drugging without consent, possibly stalking. But will they believe me? It's just voices on a recording. The drug test on your husband helps. And the pattern of behavior you've documented. But Sarah, you also need to tell Mark what's happening. I'd been dreading this. How do you tell someone their reality has been manipulated for months? He's going to think I'm crazy. He's going to think you saved his life. That evening, I made Mark his favorite dinner and waited until he seemed clear-headed. The coffee shop had been closed for renovations all week, so he'd been getting his caffeine fix elsewhere. The fog in his eyes was starting to lift. Mark, I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen to the whole thing before you say anything. I started with the journal and worked my way through everything. The recordings, the drugs, my father's involvement. Mark sat perfectly still through the entire story. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Play me one of the recordings, he finally said. I pulled out my laptop and played the clearest conversation I had. The one where Mia talked about increasing his dose. Mark's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, recognition, and finally, anger. That explains so much, he said quietly. The missing time, the conversations I couldn't remember. I thought I was losing my mind. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner, but I needed proof. He reached across the table and took my hands. You saved me. If you hadn't figured this out. He shuddered. What was their end game? What did they want? I think they wanted to break us up. Make you so confused and dependent that when Mia offered comfort, you turned to her. And my father gets his revenge by watching my life fall apart. Mark was quiet again, processing everything. We need to call the police, he said finally. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Mia stood on our front porch, visibly pregnant, tears streaming down her face. Mark and I looked at each other. This wasn't in any of the recordings. Mia? I opened the door wider. What's wrong? She pushed past me into the living room, her hands cradled around her belly. I can't do this anymore, she sobbed. I can't keep lying. Mark stepped forward. Lying about what? That's when she grabbed his hand and placed it on her stomach. Tell her the truth. Tell her it's yours and that we've been together all along. Mark jerked his hand back like he'd been burned. What? Mia, what are you talking about? But I saw something in his eyes. A flicker of uncertainty. You don't remember, do you? Mia said, her voice suddenly steadier. All those coffee dates. All those times you came to my apartment after. You don't remember any of it. Mark looked at me, then back at Mia. No. I don't remember. That's because they gave you something to make you forget, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Benzodiazepine. In your coffee. Mia's face changed. The tears stopped. The vulnerability disappeared. Prove it, she said simply. We all stood there in silence. Then Mark spoke. I want a paternity test. Of course you do, Mia said. But what if it comes back positive? What if you really are the father and you just don't remember because of what they did to you? She was good. Even knowing the truth, I felt a moment of doubt. Who's they? Mark asked. Mia looked directly at me. Ask your wife. Ask her who's been helping me plan all of this. My blood went cold. That's not true. Isn't it? Who do you think told me about your marriage problems? Who do you think gave me Mark's coffee order, his schedule, his favorite places to go? She was lying. She had to be lying. But Mark was looking at me strangely. Sarah, is there something you're not telling me? Mark, you heard the recordings. She was working with my father. She's been drugging you for months. Your father? Mia laughed. Sarah, I've never met your father. I don't even know what he looks like. The room started spinning. If she wasn't working with my father, then who was the man on the recordings? You're lying, I said, but my voice sounded weak. Mia pulled out her phone and started scrolling through text messages. Here, she said, holding it out to Mark. Read these. Your wife's been feeding me information about you for weeks. Mark took the phone. I watched his face as he read, watched the confusion turn to hurt. Sarah, these are from your number. I grabbed the phone and looked. Text after text, sent from my number to Mia's. Details about Mark's schedule, his habits, his insecurities. But I hadn't sent any of them. Someone's spoofing my number, I said desperately. This isn't real. The timestamps match, Mark said quietly. These were sent when you were home with me. When you were sleeping next to me. I felt the world tilting sideways. Mark, please. You have to believe me. I would never. Then explain the recordings, Mia interrupted. Explain how you knew exactly when to plant listening devices in my apartment. Explain how you knew I was pregnant before I even told you. I didn't know you were pregnant. You've been watching me for months, Sarah. Following me, recording me, manipulating me just like you manipulated Mark. She turned to Mark, placing her hand on her belly again. She's been playing both of us. Making you confused and dependent while making me think you were interested in me. Also, she could be the hero who saves you from the crazy best friend. Mark was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Is that true? Have you been drugging me? No. Mark, please, think about this logically. Why would I drug you and then expose the person who was supposedly helping me? But I could see doubt creeping in. The drugs had messed with his memory, his ability to trust his own perceptions. I don't know what to believe anymore, he said quietly. That's when I heard a slow clap from behind me. A man stood in our open doorway. Tall, graying at the temples, wearing an expensive suit. Bravo, he said, stepping into our living room uninvited. Really, that was beautifully orchestrated. I'd never seen him before in my life. Who are you? Mark demanded. The man smiled. I'm the other voice on your wife's recordings. Though I suspect she knows exactly who I am. My mind raced. This wasn't my father. I'd never seen this person before. I'm sorry, but I think there's been a mistake, I said. No mistake, Sarah. We've been planning this for a very long time. He walked over to Mia and put his arm around her shoulders. My daughter's quite the actress, isn't she? Mia leaned into him, smiling for the first time since she'd arrived. Your daughter? I looked between them, seeing the resemblance now. The same dark eyes, the same calculating expression. Mia's been helping me with a little social experiment, the man continued. We wanted to see how easily we could destroy a marriage using nothing but confusion and paranoia. Mark stepped closer to me. What the hell is going on? My name is Dr. Richard Lawson, the man said. I specialize in psychological manipulation. Memory suppression. The kind of research that requires real-world testing. You drugged me, Mark said. We drugged you both, Dr. Lawson corrected. Sarah, didn't you notice how paranoid you've been lately? How quickly you jumped to conclusions? How easily you believed your best friend could betray you? My mouth went dry. The coffee Mia had been bringing me. The lunches we'd shared. You've both been subjects in our study. The question was, can we turn two people who love each other into enemies using chemical enhancement of existing insecurities? He pulled out a tablet and showed us a screen full of data. Mark's fear of losing his memory, Sarah's fear of betrayal. We simply amplified what was already there. But the recordings, I said weakly. Staged. Every conversation you heard was scripted. We needed you to believe there was a conspiracy so you become increasingly paranoid and controlling. Mia stepped forward. The pregnancy isn't real either. It's just a prosthetic belly. We needed one final dramatic moment to push you both over the edge. I sank into a chair. 3 months of fear, suspicion, and paranoia. All manufactured. But why? Mark asked. Because people pay good money to understand how to manipulate relationships, Dr. Lawson said. Advertising companies, political organizations, social media platforms. The applications are endless. This is illegal, I said. Actually, it's not. You both signed consent forms. What consent forms? Mia pulled out a folder and handed it to Mark. Remember that day you came into the coffee shop and I asked you to sign a petition for local artists? That wasn't a petition. Mark flipped through the papers, his face growing pale. And Sarah, remember when I asked you to sign that lease renewal form for my apartment? Same thing. I felt sick. This can't be legal. You can't just drug people because they signed something they didn't understand. The consent forms were very clear about the nature of the study, Dr. Lawson said. Most people just don't read what they're signing. Mark threw the papers down. Get out of our house. Of course. Our work here is done anyway. You'll both be back to normal in a few days once the drugs clear your systems. Dr. Lawson headed toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Sarah? Your real father says hello. He's been funding this research for the past 2 years. Turns out he's quite wealthy now. Tech investments. He wanted me to tell you this was his way of saying goodbye. The door closed behind them, leaving Mark and me alone in our living room. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Mark spoke. How much of what I remember is real? I don't know, I admitted. How much of what I remember is real? We spent the rest of the night going through everything. Every suspicious moment, every paranoid thought, every memory that didn't quite fit. By morning, we'd filled 3 pages with questions we couldn't answer. I think we need to see a doctor, Mark said. Both of us. Get blood tests, figure out what they gave us. And a lawyer. This can't be legal, no matter what we signed. Mark nodded, then looked at me. Sarah, I need you to know something. Even when I couldn't remember things clearly, even when I was confused about everything else, I never stopped loving you. I started crying then. 3 months of fear and suspicion finally breaking open. I'm so sorry I didn't trust you. I'm sorry I let them make me paranoid. They made us both paranoid. That was the point. He pulled me close, and for the first time in months, I felt safe. The blood tests confirmed what we already knew. High levels of benzodiazepine and something called scopolamine, which the doctor explained was used to make people more suggestible. How long were you exposed? She asked. About 3 months, Mark said. The good news is there shouldn't be any permanent effects. The bad news is your memories from that period may always be unreliable. Dr. Chen, our toxicologist, pulled up charts on her computer screen. The scopolamine levels are particularly concerning. This drug is sometimes called devil's breath in criminal circles. It makes victims extremely compliant and erases their ability to form new memories during exposure. She pointed to a spike in Mark's blood work. See this? You were getting massive doses. Enough to make you black out entire conversations while appearing completely normal to outside observers. That explains the coffee meetings, Mark said quietly. I come home knowing I'd seen Mia but unable to remember what we talked about. And Sarah, your levels are lower but still significant. The paranoia, the hypervigilance, the obsessive behavior, all chemically enhanced versions of normal protective instincts. I thought about those weeks of following Mark, planting recording devices, checking his phone while he slept. It felt like watching someone else's life. How did they know the exact doses to give us? I asked. Dr. Chen's expression darkened. This level of precision suggests extensive prior research. I'd be very surprised if you were their first test subjects. We left the hospital with a folder full of test results and a growing understanding of how thoroughly we'd been manipulated. That night, Mark found me sitting on our bathroom floor, staring at the drug testing kit I'd used months earlier. I was so proud of myself for figuring it out, I said. I thought I was being smart and protective. You were. Even drugged, you knew something was wrong. But what if I hadn't figured it out? What if I just kept getting more paranoid until I destroyed us myself? Mark sat down next to me on the cold tile. But you did figure it out. That's what matters. I keep thinking about all the couples who didn't. Dr. Chen said there might be others. There probably are. But we can't save everyone, Sarah. We can barely save ourselves. He was right, but it didn't make the guilt any easier. Our lawyer was more optimistic about the legal case. Consent obtained through deception isn't valid consent, Janet explained. And drugging people without their knowledge is assault, regardless of what they signed. She'd already filed complaints with the medical board, the university where Dr. Lawson worked, and the police. The daughter will probably flip and testify against him in exchange for a plea deal. These kinds of cases rely heavily on cooperation from co-conspirators. Mia called me 2 weeks later. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Can you meet me somewhere public?" We met at a Starbucks downtown. She looked different without the fake pregnancy belly. Smaller, younger, more nervous. "I want you to know I'm cooperating with the police," she said before I could speak. "Good. And I want you to know that some of it was real." I looked up from my coffee. "What do you mean?" "I really was jealous of you. Your life, your marriage. That part wasn't fake. But the drugging was. The drugging was my father's idea. But the feelings behind it." She shrugged. "Those were mine." We sat in uncomfortable silence. "Why did you agree to do it?" I asked finally. "Money, partly. But also because he promised it would be harmless. That we'd just mess with your heads a little bit and then everything would go back to normal." "And you believe that?" "I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe there was a way to get what I wanted without really hurting anyone." She pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. "What's this?" "Copies of all the real conversations. The ones we didn't fake. I thought you might want to know what was actually said versus what was scripted." I stared at the envelope but didn't pick it up. "Mia, we were friends for 7 years." "I know. Did any of that mean anything to you?" She was quiet for a long time. "It did. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm testifying against my own father." She stood up to leave, then turned back. "Sarah? I really am sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know." I watched her walk away and wondered if I'd ever be able to trust anyone completely again. 6 months later, Dr. Lawson was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Mia got 2 years probation and community service. The trial was harder than I expected. Sitting in that courtroom, listening to the prosecutor describe what they'd done to us, made it all feel real again in a way that was almost unbearable. Dr. Lawson's defense attorney tried to paint us as willing participants who'd gotten in over our heads. My client's research was clearly outlined in the consent documents, he argued. These people signed up for a psychological study and are now experiencing buyer's remorse. But Janet had done her homework. She tracked down 3 other couples who'd been through similar experiments with Dr. Lawson. 2 of those couples had divorced. One man had attempted suicide when he couldn't trust his own memories anymore. "This wasn't research," Janet told the jury. "This was systematic psychological torture disguised as science." The most damaging evidence came from Dr. Lawson's own notes, seized from his office. Pages and pages documenting our reactions, our fears, our breaking points. We were lab rats to him, nothing more. I had to testify about finding the journal, about planting the recording devices, about the months of paranoia and fear. Mark testified about the memory loss, the confusion, the way he'd started to doubt his own sanity. Mia testified last. She looked smaller on the witness stand, younger. When the prosecutor asked why she'd agreed to help her father, she started crying. "He said it would help people understand how relationships work," she said. "He said we could prevent divorces by studying what makes couples turn against each other. I thought we were doing something good." "But you knew you were drugging them without their knowledge?" "He said the consent forms covered it. He said they'd agree to chemical intervention as part of the study." "Did you read the consent forms yourself?" A long pause. "No." When it was over, Dr. Lawson was led away in handcuffs. He looked at me once before the bailiff took him out. There was no remorse in his eyes, just curiosity. Like he was still studying me, even then. Mark and I went to therapy. Both individually and together. We learned about trauma bonding and gaslighting and how to rebuild trust after psychological manipulation. The hardest part, our therapist said, is accepting that you may never know for certain what was real and what wasn't. The goal is to build new memories and new trust going forward. We moved to a different house. Got new phone numbers. Started over in small ways. The house hunting was surreal. Every potential home felt contaminated somehow, like the paranoia might follow us wherever we went. Mark wanted something modern and open, no hidden corners, he said. I wanted something with good sight lines to the street, multiple exit routes. Our realtor probably thought we were in witness protection. We finally found a small ranch house with big windows and a clear view of the front yard. The previous owners had left a garden in the backyard, tomatoes, herbs, flowers. Something about growing our own food felt important after months of not knowing what we were consuming. Mark switched jobs and I took a sabbatical from work. We spent a lot of time just talking, rebuilding our foundation from the ground up. The sabbatical wasn't planned. 3 weeks after the trial, I had a panic attack during a client meeting. Just froze completely when the client offered me coffee. My boss was understanding. Take whatever time you need, she said. Your job will be here when you're ready. Mark's new job was at a smaller firm across town. Better benefits, shorter commute, and most importantly, no coffee shop on the route. He started bringing a thermos from home, filled with coffee I'd watched him make myself. Do you think we'll ever be normal about coffee again? I asked him one morning, watching him screw the lid onto his thermos. Maybe not normal, he said. But maybe that's okay. Maybe being a little paranoid about what we put in our bodies isn't the worst thing in the world. Do you think we would have survived if they hadn't done this to us? Mark asked one night. I think we would have been fine, I said. But maybe not as strong as we are now. He considered this. It's weird to be grateful for something so awful. I'm not grateful for what they did. But I'm grateful for what we learned about ourselves. About each other. 6 months of hell had taught us that our love was stronger than fear, stronger than manipulation, stronger than the worst versions of ourselves. I still have the recordings. Sometimes I listen to them, trying to figure out which conversations were real and which were scripted. But mostly, I don't want to know anymore. The truth is, it doesn't matter what Mia really felt or what my father really wanted or what Dr. Lawson was really studying. What matters is that Mark and I chose to fight for each other instead of against each other. What matters is that we learn to trust our love more than our fears. What matters is that we're here, together, building something real. The microphone I planted under Mia's coffee table is still in my desk drawer. A reminder of how quickly paranoia can consume you, how easily trust can be broken, how hard it is to rebuild what's been destroyed. But we're doing it anyway. One conversation, one day, one choice at a time. Because in the end, that's all any relationship really is, a series of choices to keep showing up for each other, even when you're not sure what's real. Especially when you're not sure what's real. Update: a lot of people have been asking about my father's involvement. The police investigated and found that Dr. Lawson lied about that too. My father never funded anything and probably has no idea any of this happened. It was just another layer of manipulation designed to make me feel like everyone in my life had betrayed me. The mind games were deeper than we ever realized. Update 2: Mark and I got married again last month. Same dress, same vows, but this time we knew exactly what we were promising each other. Our therapist said it was unnecessary, but we wanted a memory that was completely ours. Mia sent a card from prison. I didn't open it. For everyone asking how we're doing now, we're good. Really good. Mark's memory came back completely, and we've learned to laugh about some of the ridiculous things we believed during those 3 months. Like when I was convinced he was having secret meetings with Mia because he came home smelling like vanilla. Turns out his office building had switched to vanilla-scented air fresheners. The trust issues took longer to work through than the drug effects, but our therapist was right, we're stronger now than we were before. When you've survived someone literally messing with your brain chemistry and you still choose each other, it puts normal relationship problems in perspective. We kept the house we moved to and turned the spare bedroom into an office where I work from home now. Sometimes I catch Mark looking at me while I'm working, just watching me be normal and boring and real. He says it's the most beautiful thing in the world. The legal case is still ongoing. Dr. Lawson is appealing his sentence, claiming his research was legitimate. His university fired him and revoked his tenure. Turns out we weren't his first victims. 5 other couples have come forward with similar stories. Some of them weren't as lucky as us. Someone asked if I regret planting the microphone. Honestly? No. Even though it led me down a rabbit hole of paranoia, it also gave us the evidence we needed to prove what happened. Without those recordings, people might never have believed us. Sometimes you have to trust your instincts, even when those instincts have been chemically altered. The weirdest part is that I still think about Mia sometimes. Not with anger anymore, but with something like sadness. 7 years of friendship, and I'll never know which parts were real and which parts were her playing a role. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the friendship was real to me, and that's enough. Anyway, that's our story. Thanks to everyone who reached out with support. It helped more than you know.